to it. At the beginning of the movie, we are presented with our protagonist Riley. Unlike in the previous movie, she now is an adolescent who will have to deal with a host of new emotions that will turn her world upside down, but in the end, she will have to use them to discover who she really is, while her emotions are also in her head, seeking the best from her. And these emotions are joy, that is always very positive, anger that cannot dominate her character, fear, and sadness, who doesn't stop crying. Then we travel to the home of the emotions where Riley built several islands of personalities according to her preferences. We also see that Riley's thoughts were formed by her own beliefs that over time became her true identity. And we discovered that thanks to all of her good actions, Riley considered herself a good person and reinforced her personality every time she did little things, like playing on a team by allowing a friend of hers to score points on a certain day. But Riley's team had just won a game with her two best friends, and the school coach approaches them to invite them to a hockey camp where only the best players were invited. So her parents and her friends are happy for her because they believe that if she manages to impress the coach, the following year she will be admitted to the best hockey team in the school. And although everything seems to be going well, we see that Riley felt insecure like any teenager in this age, because she knows that she always makes mistakes while playing, and then Joy comes out to protect Riley so she doesn't feel that discouraged. She invented a new technology that allowed her to eliminate all of Riley's negative thoughts, such as shame, fear, and discomfort, and after getting rid of them all by throwing it far away, Riley was only left with good thoughts that brought her joy and a source of belief in herself, which was a very important place because they were all united in this self-belief system. But one night, all the emotions were resting when suddenly an alarm called puberty goes off on the emotions board, and although Joy tries to get rid of it, then a group of workers arrive. They make a lot of modifications in the board and the whole scene, even changing the configuration of the emotion board, and just as they leave, Riley wakes up full of emotions like a real teenager. And we see her crying, laughing, and having a bunch of emotions all at the same time. But then later, she reunites with her friends, and she tells them that she's very excited because if they show that they are excellent players, the three of them will be able to be admitted to the team. However, Bree and Grace reveal to her that they will study at another high school, and although sadness is about to make a protagonist to cry, the emotions are there to stop her, so that Riley acts as if nothing happened, and she promises her friends that no matter what, even if they separate, they would always be together. Then Riley arrives at the camp where she can finally cry without anybody watching her. But as soon as she tries to calm down, because it would be very embarrassing if the whole high school students saw her cry like that, and although Anger doesn't want Riley to reunite with these treacherous friends as he believes, Joy believes that she should not abandon them. And as Riley walks towards them, she accidentally bumps into Valentina, whom the protagonist admires a lot because she was the captain of the high school's hockey team. And although the emotions try to act in a normal way, we finally see that a new emotion called anxiety appears. She was very crazy. She didn't stop talking and she wanted to do everything all at once. She was rambunctious and all over the place. And it turns out that she didn't arrive alone, because next to her came the hasty, envy, the lazy ennui, and a new big guy called Embarrassment, whom sadness is very gentle to. Of course, Anger is not happy at all with all of these new emotions, but Joy, who is very experienced, understands that all of these new emotions are part of Riley's new teenage years. And going back to anxiety, she makes Riley abandon her old friends to go with Valentina because she believes that this way she will have a better future in the secondary high school years. And then we see that Joy is not happy with this, but after this, anxiety shows Joy that if they continue doing the things their way, Riley would only end up acting like a fool in front of Valentina and they would never get on the team. But still, Joy doesn't agree with anxiety and she orders him to keep doing the things as they were. After this, Valentina introduces Riley to the rest of the Firehawks, and when they invite her to share their team, Anxiety is very happy, but Joy makes her reject him because she shouldn't abandon her best friends, and she makes the young girl take happy pictures with them. All of a sudden, because of her, the coach arrives to confiscate the cell phones of the players, and as Joy is very distracted with unwanted anxiety, she ends up making Riley give a fit of laughter, causing the coach to punish her even more, and all the girls, who already began to hate Riley. Later on, while the team is taking a break, Riley hears that she didn't make a good impression on the other Hawks, so she feels a mixture of sadness and embarrassment. And when Anxiety sees that Joy doesn't know how to deal with this, he makes Riley go to Valentina, who calms her down by telling her that the coach is not a good person and it wasn't her fault. This actually calms Riley down, and when Riley returns to the game, she has to choose who to play with. So Anxiety Anxiety prefers to choose the Firm Hawks, but Joy wants her to keep her promise to play with her best friends. And as Anxiety is very controlling, she actually throws away Riley's identity and ends up betraying her best friends to choose to play with the Hawks. And not just happy with this, we discover that Anxiety wants to form a whole new identity for Riley. So she gets rid of Joy by capturing Waves to send them to the vault, where she locks them in a cell from which the escape would be absolutely impossible. And then this unfortunate emotion uses the memories of Riley meeting Valentina to deposit them in the source of belief system, making the protagonist prefer to join the Hawks rather than spend time with her best friends as she always did in the past. At the same time, we see that the emotions were locked in the same cell where there was another cartoon dog that had a magic bag that had dynamite and allows them to escape. And when they are discovered by the guards, a video game character that Riley liked ends up defeating him in a rather peculiar way. But then when he defeats them, they are locked in the same vault. So the emotions are finally free, and Joy plans to go up in the stream of consciousness that would take them to the place where he threw all of Riley's bad thoughts, since it was there where her true identity lied, and this way they would return to the board to control Riley's mind once again, and everything would go back to normal. However, when the thoughts try to find a way to stream of consciousness, Joy ends up leading them to a dead end, but although this becomes a mission impossible, they realize that Sadness must crawl through the tube to the barracks, because only then could the rest of the emotions get there, and then everyone puts this plan into action. The next day, we see that Anxiety makes Riley get up very early to practice hockey, and when Valentina arrives, she sees that Riley was putting so much effort into the game that she decides to invite her to dinner with the Hawks family. And when the rest of the players arrive, the unhappy Anxiety is responsible for making Riley reject her best friends. And then Anxiety continues to deposit selfish and bad thoughts in the source of Riley's belief system, making her focus only on being the best on her team and not on her best friends. And after the game, the Firehawks show her a red notebook in which the coach wrote down how good the players were. And after this, Anxiety continues to alter Riley's personality, turning her into someone very different from herself who only sought to fit into the popular group of the Hawks. And since her best friends didn't fit into the group, Riley rejects them again, distancing herself from them. Sadness manages to get to the barracks, pushed by various thoughts, but her other emotion friends aren't so lucky because she was changing so much that she developed a strange type of sarcasm that had begun to modify the entire structure of her mind, making Joy and other emotions almost lose their lives. Afterwards, the girls tell Riley that tomorrow would be the last day of training, and they tell her that last year the coach chose Valentina for the team for having scored 2 goals. So Anxiety, after hearing this, plans to create a new identity for Riley to help her in tomorrow's game. Suddenly, Sadness creeps into the room, but she's discovered by Shane, and because Sadness treated him so well in the past, he decides to ignore her and continue going in the job. So while this is happening, Anxiety, of course, gets anxious about everything that happened, and Envy suggests that they should know the content of the coach's notebook. So they wake Riley up so they can go into the teacher's office, and although Sadness tries to stop Riley because this is obviously wrong, Anxiety finds her, locking her up in a tube and already making the young woman look at the notebook, and finds that the coach left a note in the notebook saying that Riley was not ready. Seeing this, the emotions become sad because they believe that the coach has already made the decision of not putting her into the team. So Anxiety thinks that tomorrow she will have to do whatever it takes to change the thought from the coach's mind. They make her dye a strand of her head red and make her ignore her best friends to belong to a more popular group. In addition, Anxiety tells her emotion friends that the new Riley's sense of identity was almost ready, and that this new Riley will try to score 3 goals to be even better than Valentina. On the other hand, Joy and the others travel through a storm of bad ideas and anxieties, and after having a very bad time, they arrive at the mountain of bad experiences. Basically ideas that she had discarded for a long time, but the bad thing here is that the game is about to start. The new sense of Riley's identity is created by Anxiety that says I'm not good, so the emotions become distressed when listening to her, and Anxiety continues working to fix this problem. As he sees that things are going in the wrong direction, Embarrassment helps Sadness to bring his friends to the barracks. However, Anxiety realizes this and breaks the pipe, leaving Joy and his friends with no option to return. Joy becomes sad and thinks, what did she do wrong if she always made sure that Riley discarded the bad ideas and bad memories? And since they think that everything was over, it occurs to Anger something pretty amazing, to call on the bag to give them dynamite, so they blow up the whole mountain of bad thoughts to approach reach the headquarters. At that moment, the game against her best friends begins. She managed to score the first goal, but then the anxious Riley makes an unfair play since she takes the puck from the teammate to score the second goal. But unfortunately later on, no matter how hard she tried, she just couldn't score. She even did a lot of physical harm to one of her best friends because of it, which because of this, she is sent to the punishment box. Going back to the emotions, they had approached the base, and unintentionally some bad ideas had reached the source of beliefs. As everything was going wrong, anxiety was losing its sanity and working more and more, and this caused Riley to have a very hard time because all of the pressure, and she was about to have an anxious breakdown. And even though all the emotions were telling anxiety to stop, she just wanted to work harder and harder. That's when Joy comes and tells her that she has no right to decide over who Riley is, and upon hearing this, anxiety releases the controls, then everyone comes to their senses of identity, and when Joy places the identity that she had created, she realizes that Riley was not improving. At that moment, Joy realizes that since anxiety told her they had no right to decide who Riley is, and she remembers that only she can choose the good thoughts, so they create a new identity with all the good and bad experiences that Riley has lived through the years, and thus they create a new sense of identity that shows Riley's true nature. During this, her best friends ask her if she's okay. Then Riley apologizes to them for having been so rude in the past and tells them that she was only upset because she knew they would leave her. Feeling this sincere regret from her, they decide to forgive her. Back to the command control, Joy makes Riley play, and she does it very calmly. Now she can compete without getting distressed, and you could even say that she has a lot of fun playing with all the girls. The day passed, and we can see that all the emotions work together, and although anxiety was still worried about what would happen in the future, Joy was there to calm her down. Then we see that Riley missed her friends a lot, to the point where even the old emotion of nostalgia comes from time to time. Later we see that Riley receives the news that she did manage to join the team, and at the end of the movie, we see that the emotions are happy to be part of Riley's life because she is a girl who lives everything in the moment and feels all the emotions without getting scared, giving us an understanding that this is what life is truly about.